Hi, everybody. I got a little story to tell. I do love this event. As you just saw, I learn so much every time we come along, and I learn not just from the amazing presenters that we hear from in this room, but I learn from all of the meetings that we're lucky enough to have with you all. And a couple of years ago, at this event, interestingly in California, up in Napa, I sat down for one of these meetings with Dr. Carol McKinley, who you're going to hear from in just a moment, and she described to me her vision for providing more personalized, proactive care to her residents. And we thought, well, wouldn't that be utterly fantastic? And as we do in these meetings, I described to Carol what it is that we do, the headlines of which are we put sensors, passive sensors in the homes of older adults, and we automatically collect information and share it with caregivers and clinicians and care coordinators to help provide more personalized care and to respond more closely to the exact needs of residents in the communities that we work with. And I described that to Carol and thought, wow, imagine if we could work together and in some small way contribute to the amazing vision that she had. And we're going to hear in just a moment a little bit about the results that have been accomplished and the experience that she had and thoughts she might have if you want to do the same thing. Just before we do that, I'm going to go straight to the end and just show you a short video of what Carol and her team have achieved at Simpson. There are about 1,000 residents across the whole continuum of care. It's an amazing collection of communities, but let's just take a quick look at the results that she's achieved, and then I'll welcome Carol to the stage. You want to roll the video?
I have a strong passion for taking care of older adults. I have always wanted to continue that path of ensuring that elders receive good care. And I desire that care is good, that residents feel strong about the life they have in our communities, and that the staff have the tools they need to provide that life so that they feel that they love living with us.
As we get to know our residents, we know their lifestyles, we know their preferences, we know their routines, and we make this their home.
Right, my residents are everything. It's just very rewarding, the opportunity to be able to really give back and show compassion to people as they age.
When we first started trialing Amba here in Ruston, the assisted living, we saw over a 60% reduction in falls within a quarter, and that is a game changer.
That's a huge differentiator on how we care for our residents in our organization. That's always been a vision in my head, but I could never operationalize it. And so when I met Amba, they had already operationalized it.
Thanks to Amba, it now guides us. It puts us in the direction of where we need to be. Instead of blindly walking down hallways, checking on rooms, with Amba, we know if something is dire. We know when we're looking at our dashboard, if everything is green, it's great. We now can use the Amba technology to say, hey, their resting heart rate used to be this, now it's this. Their sleep pattern, which is so important, their sleep pattern has gone from this to this. So we're no longer guessing.
We can catch things earlier. That's a differentiator for us because no one else is doing that. We can now be proactive in picking up on nuances that we can take care of immediately before they become greater issues.
That has done us a great service in heading off potential issues for the residents, whether it's their respirations or their bathroom visits or heart rate, whatever that may be. It does give us a lot more information to provide to families and caregivers.
Another benefit with Amba would be to help reduce the use of our psychotropic medications. Again, being able to see someone's sleep data, their normal patterns and habits, helps me as a clinician to develop their plan of care.
We are not here to push retirement. We're here to push the retirement experience. And that's the beautiful part about Jenner's Pond.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you welcome Dr. Carol McKinley? I should let you know that we don't have a clock running, so someone's going to have to tell us when to call it off, okay? Thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
So I should also emphasize that obviously the technology that Carol's using to help on this job, one of the technologies is ours, but there are plenty of other ones. As you're going to see while you're here, you'll see all of the amazing vendors of different technologies in the meetings that you're having. But of course, the example we've got here is the one that I'm the CEO of. So Carol, thank you so much. What I thought we would do is talk about three subjects and start from the end, talk about the results and how it's the sort of things that are being achieved at Simpson, talk a little bit about what that means in terms of people, how their activities and roles have changed, and talk a bit about what you might want to do first, just experiences that Carol's had that might help you along. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll start with talking about some of the great results that you've achieved so far.
So Simpson is a retirement system in the Philadelphia region. As Stu shared, we have a little over 1,000 residents, around 600 employees. We have 3 retirement communities, 3 affordable housing, home care, and therapy. And my desire, as Stu has shared, has always been to really lean in to innovation and technology, looking for ways to help support the best opportunities for residents to meet their needs. Not only am I a provider in this space, but I'm a daughter. My mother lives not in one of my retirement communities. She's been in another one for several years, but she's 100 years old. And so when I knew what Stu had and how we implemented it in my organization, one of the things that was important to me, and I wish I had known when my dad and mom were aging, is some of this technology that would have helped me support them in their home environment, and now we're using in our environment there at Simpson. So there are 3 areas of results that I want to speak to. One is really related to the residents' results. You saw some of the data that came on the video. But because these are passive sensors and they're collecting real-time data all day long, our staff have available insights into those residents' needs, and so they can catch things very quickly, or they can see things that, or go back to the data when they see things as to how a resident is presenting. So if we have a resident that is a little out of sorts, typically someone would say they're just a little out of sorts, we're going back and looking at the data. So why are they out of sorts, and what does the data show us? So with these opportunities, we're able to really prevent falls or predict. You're looking at predictive information. You're looking at patterns. So we've decreased our falls. We've decreased psychotropics significantly. Last summer, you saw the 81%. We do have psychotropic usage in the community, but we have memory care across the continuum. So a lot of people with cognitive issues. So we've had a lot of ability to do that, but also decrease in sending them to the emergency room, to urgent care, those areas that no one wants to send their parents to. I certainly do not want to send my 100-year-old mother out to a hospital if I can prevent it. And so all of the data with just healthcare has benefited us, and we've done really well in all of those areas. Secondly, we have increased our staffing, our own staffing. Many of you in our space, we've utilized agency throughout these last few years. Workforce has been really challenging. It's been very challenging in the community that's up here. That one sits on 88 acres out in a pretty rural area, quite hard to bring staff in. But utilizing innovation, we have been able to draw people into our organization. So our own staffing complement has increased significantly, and our agency costs have gone dramatically down. So about 2 years ago, I was spending over $2 million on agency, and now I'm down to $147,000. Wow. So that's a significant drop. And then the final place where this has been supportive is in marketing. You heard me twice say differentiator. We're always looking. I live in an area of Pennsylvania. Philadelphia, Lancaster is full of life plan communities, and how are we differentiating from others? And our use of this type of platform is making a big difference.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And so, well, that's extraordinary. Those results are real, and those are real numbers. What has that meant for your staff in terms of what has changed for them? Is their day look a little bit different than it used to? How different is it for them now as it was a couple of years ago?
So the staff, and many of you may see this in your own organizations or if you've made changes, but we tend to have nursing staff historically that are task takers, and all day long they're passing medications, they're doing wound care, they're doing wellness checks. Our days are different. We are now huddling on a regular basis, and our staff are encouraged. Actually, you really can't get through our day unless you are a critical thinker. So just taking out the basic thoughts of just, I only have to pass these 8 meds down this hallway. We're now looking at, why is Mrs. So-and-so so annoyed today? That is so different from her normal ways. So let's go back and look at the dashboard of what's going on, and the team huddles and tries to think about that. That's really different. And if you think, and you know, Stu and I've had these conversations, I have these with my staff, but we label people when they have certain actions. I try to get away from the word behaviors. And I think of my dad. My dad had advanced Parkinson's, and he became very angry in his older adult age. He had a lot of delusions and hallucinations. And the staff began to label him as an abusive man. Now, that's my dad. And I was so disheartened. But when we look back on the dashboards that we have, our staff can start critically thinking, well, what has happened? Why is Reverend Brown getting up this way in the morning? Is it because his sleep was disturbed at night? And what does that look like? Because we use a passive sensor of sleep. You know, did something happen related to his movements? We can check all of that. So the staff are literally spending their day thinking about how we're caring for the resident rather than just moving for the day. And I think the second thing that they do really well is they're very efficient with their time. They're not walking around looking at every resident. They're really looking at that dashboard for the residents who are showing red, that have really or have needs at that time, and they can respond to them timely and take care of them versus interrupting somebody within who's engaged in a conversation or doing some type of enjoying task.
Fantastic. And would you say, if we had your staff members here with us today, that sounds like a more fulfilling way to spend the day than it otherwise would?
I know that, yes, we get a lot of kudos on that. My staff often hear me talking about feeding sheep. We're a ministry, we're not for profit, and I think that when people feel like their skill sets, their knowledge bases are increasing and they have tools to use, it makes a difference. We have a lot of universities in our area, and when you think about the students that are out there who are learning in really cool labs at their universities, and then they come outside into healthcare, and we're very traditional and behind the times, both in tools and regulation. It doesn't make them want to come into our field. I feel that with utilizing the platforms we have through Amba, that is something that they love, and they see that we're making a difference with it, and they're learning from it.
Great, fantastic. So maybe we could talk a little bit about what it's been like, the ups and downs to getting from where you were a couple of years ago to where you are now. Is there anything you want to share with us about what that journey's been like?
Well, I think for anyone stepping into technology, there's always the risk aversion. Nobody, and it's really hard to get people to accept that there's something really good here. And we're very fortunate. The Amba team is very hands-on, and so they were in my space working very closely with my team members and our residents. And I can't really think of super downsized with the work that we did together. I think part of that is that anyone doing new technology in your communities has to be willing to walk beside you. I have done pilots in the past where the groups have come in and they pretty much tell us what to do, and then they're gone. And then you are at a loss if something goes wrong. And that has not been my experience with this team, that they have walked side by side with us, and not only the leadership, but also ensuring that our staff are well prepared and continue to be. I think some of the other parts of that are bringing our residents along. So yes, we have Amba deployed in assisted living, memory care, and all my skilled care programs within Simpson. But we also are working on deploying it in our independent living and our home care. And in independent living, what we did learn when we introduced this was the fact that they already knew about smart homes. In terms of technology, they didn't need another Alexa. They didn't need nesting, et cetera. They were more concerned, in some of the conversations we've had here at this conference, is how do we stay well? How do we live longer? And what are you going to do to help us do that? And so when we introduced Amba and how small the sensors were, and that the sensors weren't talking to the rest of the world, because everybody wants to know where their data is going. So once we were able to share all of that, they got excited. But sometimes our independent living residents can be our worst enemies in terms of trying to introduce these types of changes. We brought Amba to the table and allowed them to speak to our residents on several occasions and have these one-on-one conversations so they could understand what we were doing. And now we just didn't give the Amba program away to our independent residents. They actually pay a subscription for that. But through other processes, we've been able to incorporate the Amba model throughout the rest of the organization, and there are no underlying charges for that. So, but it's been an interesting process. And I think partly you have to have all the materials ready to go. We've done pilots before where the materials aren't available, and with Amba, they had everything ready and ready to move in.
I tell you what we weren't ready for. I just remember doing one of these engagement events, and it turned out that one of the residents was sitting in the event and asking us questions with their AI agent giving them a hand, you know, checking out what I was saying and checking it out with I think it was Katina or ChatGPT. But anyway, yeah, it's really, I'm sure it's true of your communities too, but a really interesting and very engaged collection of individuals who really wanted to know exactly how this was all going to work. So Carol, 2 years ago, you were sitting right here, not actually 400 miles north of here, meeting with, as you all are, these groups of organizations offering you the tools to accomplish the things that you have in your strategy and vision and so on. What sort of advice or thoughts would you share with this group of people based on what you've learned this last couple of years?
I wouldn't, I would jump in and do whatever you can to embrace innovation and technology. If you don't, you won't be relevant. And my teams, my leadership teams, my staff, my residents frequently hear me share that. They're not always happy about change. And I have made change in this organization because if I didn't, we would not be here tomorrow. I would not have new residents coming in. I would not have new staff. So I would embrace it and step into it as best you can. Ask lots of questions and not be afraid, because it's not going away. It's not going away. And there, you know, Amba has brought some really interesting things to us, which have pushed us further along. And I wish, again, as I started early on in our conversation, that I had known this type of technology when I was trying to figure out how I was going to care for my parents. And I can tell you, my mother doesn't live in one of my communities, and one of my frustrations, and one of the things that Amba does for us, is that community where she's at, and at 100 years old, I would not move her, is that everything is guided for her and their team by subjective information. And so I'll get a call, and I got a call recently that they wanted to send my mother down the road to a hospital 50 minutes away. That was the closest hospital, and I said no. But if they had had the alert, the type of data that we are seeing, they would be able to have answered some of the questions that they were subjectively determining why they wanted to send her out. And so they could have seen, was her sleep disturbed? What was her heart rate looking like over days of patterns? My mother has cognitive impairment, so she's not going to be able to tell us what's wrong, but the data does. And the data is real-time, strong data for us to make quality decisions on. And our families love that. And as a daughter, I love that. And it certainly speaks to me every time I work to see a success in one of our residents where we're not shifting them somewhere where they don't belong.
Fantastic. We've got about a minute left. I can ask you one more question unless anybody else has a question they would prefer to ask. Has anyone got a question that I should ask? Otherwise, I'll just go for it. Okay. There we go.
There's a question in the back here.
This is wonderful. Thank you both. How does it work, Dr. McKinney, in the independent living side? Are you collecting data on residents who are independent, want to remain independent, and are expected to live a certain way in that part of the community?
Independent living residents, it is by choice if they want this. These are all soft sensors that capture a variety of information. The information goes to a dashboard where our wellness nurse is collecting, and when she reviews the data, she can review it all day long. She knows what residents in our buildings, we know what residents are more complicated than others. She can go back to them individually and recommend they go to their doctors. Or we have another level of physicians that is also looking at the data for us. So independent living residents love it because they know that we're trying to catch things early. And we did have a resident through the sleep pad who actually picked up that she had afibrillation. And she would not have known that, except for that. She knew she wasn't sleeping well. And when they picked up the information, they were able to determine there was a problem for which she could be treated. So it's by choice, but it keeps them independent.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, Carol. I do hope that you find some new partners today when you're talking to the various organizations that are here representing the products and technologies and other services that are got available. And maybe in 2 years' time, you'll be back telling us all about what you've accomplished with the new partnership that you've established. So thank you so much, Carol. And thank you all, and see you all.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Stu.